Welcome to The Presser by Extra Time, where we interview key figures in the sports industry and hear their remarkable stories. Enjoy the latest episode. Welcome back to The Presser, and what an episode we have today. Matthew Cowling, EVP of Genius Sports, welcome in.
Thanks, guys. Pleasure.
Thank you for donating your time to us today. We just had a chat to you in our lecture theatre, and it was just tremendous to hear the world of stats and data from someone that's within it. But we'll start with, I guess, your career snapshot.
Sure.
So back when you were in my position as a student, take us through where you've come from and where you are now.
Like so many who've been in sport, it started with volunteering, right? So, I was a statistician for the Geelong Supercats when they were in the NBL. I didn't stat their famous 0-24 season. I came in the year after that, but I was a statistician for the club. As time progressed, I got more involved in the club as a volunteer. Ultimately, started working for the club, and to be honest, guys, it sort of just rolled from there. And I decided I wanted to stay in sport. I had a strong affinity and understanding of basketball, and particularly basketball statistics, but I didn't necessarily always plan to be in basketball, but that's sort of how it started. I then was lucky enough to sort of be involved in the digitisation of basketball data. In 1994, worked on the World Championships for women in Sydney, and we recorded stats using computers for the first time, things like that. I did the same for the 1997 World Youth Championships in Melbourne, and then from there got asked to work at the Olympics. And after that, it sort of just snowballed, to be honest. And I've just had this affinity with sports data, how it's collected, and sports management, and I'm just very inquisitive. I'm very interested in how sporting organisations run themselves and how they operate and the differences. And you look at the US and it's so different how Australian sport works. So those things have always fascinated me.
And you mentioned how inquisitive you are. Do you think that's something that's really held you in good stead in progressing your career, that and obviously taking on whatever is in front of you?
Yeah, I think the organisations that I do work with would say that I cross-pollinate a lot. So I bring things in from other sporting organisations into this one to say, okay, why don't we look at this? Why don't you guys think about something else this way? We do all sorts of things like that, and I do a lot. It also gives me a basis of expertise, I suppose, to be fair, to say, actually, I do know how that sport does that. And you could learn from this, or actually they've got one good idea that you could use, things like that. So that inquisitive has helped me. That inquisitive nature has helped me with that. Yep.
And how does that help you in your current job? And just give us a bit of an explanation, a snapshot of what you do and
Sure.
what Genius Sports is.
All right. So Genius Sports is at its core a sports data technology company. We collect sports data. We distribute that data to a range of downstream customers. We're very well known for data provision to the betting industry, but we also provide data to the broadcast industry and to the media industry, programmatic advertising and other things like that. My role sits sort of at the intersection of commercial and product and sport. And, a commercial guy come to me and say, we want to talk to this sport. Is there something in that? Should we do that? And I'll talk about whether that sport is going to add value to our network or how we can help that sport, which is important. And then I'll talk about whether our products align for that sport. Do we have the right products to offer that sport? So I sit at that intersection, if you like.
So you mentioned in that answer, and it was a ripper. Talk to us about pragmatic advertising and the current media landscape. And are we giving up too much information, or is it worth it?
Oh, that's a great question. I didn't expect that. Programmatic. At the moment, you're giving up a lot of information just because you're browsing. And we talked earlier about cookies and what's happening with Google. And the answer is that people give up the information they want to give up. And they genuinely do. Like, you come to a website and sometimes you're a bit lazy and just accept all cookies. Other times you're a little bit more inquisitive yourself and you go, no, I'm going to manage cookies on this site, right? And that often comes down as a consumer as to how much you trust the organisation you're visiting, right? So I think that in general, people can control their data if they wish to. I think people get a bit lazy with it.
Talking about data, how has this actually changed, and the collection of data changed the sports industry into how has it actually changed life as well?
I think, I'll tell you a story. I got asked a couple of years ago what I thought was the biggest revolution in sports data over the last 10 years. And I surprised the company that asked me because my answer was actually health and safety, right? So to give you an idea, think about the work that has happened by health industry professionals in sport around injury management and particularly concussion, right? There's a enormous piece of research that is still ongoing around the management of concussion. All of that is based on high quality data now. Now, that data might be video, right? That data might be raw data as to what happened. It might be the results of tests. But concussion alone is a great example of how sport is contributing and how the collection of data. Now, I don't spend a lot of time working on concussion. I just think that a lot of what has happened in sport, a lot of the revolution in sport over the last 15 years that doesn't get talked about a lot is how much health and safety and prevention of injury and fitness and recovery management has improved the quality of sport.
Now, there's more to data than just the score, as you've just mentioned. And talk to us, as you did before we came on air, about the different types of data and what it can do for the game, not just for training or for game or for media purposes, but for officiating as well. Okay,
so I think about data at 4 levels, right? It's not a bottom level; it's the next most important level is the score data. So in English football, it's penalties and red cards and yellow cards and goals and then I think about what I call box score or results data, and that is in football, it's shots on goal, it's throw-ins, it's fouls, those sort of things. Then you have a layer of analytics on top of that. Where did that shot on goal actually get recorded from? At what point in the field was the shot on goal? Was it right foot or left foot? You know? And then there's performance data. How hard did they kick the ball? Now, performance data, as I mentioned earlier, can only be recorded by a machine, right? I think there's a revolution coming in officiating, right? And that revolution is about, I think, automated officiating. And I don't think automated officiating is new, right? I just think it's new to team sports. And I talked earlier about swimming. You know, swimming aquatics is a great example of a sport that for many, many years has had automated officiating. Because if the swimmer leaves the block early, then a buzzer goes off and we have a false start and we go back and start the race again and they only get one chance. And guess what? A machine decides that. It's not a human deciding that anymore. So there's a revolution coming where machines are going to help us more and more and more to make decisions on the field. But, and I said to you guys earlier, I don't want to lose the drama. Yeah. You know, in Australian football, I love the ball call and everybody around the ground really loves the ball call, holding the ball. It's a big call in the game. There's other calls I don't care so much about. So,
would you say that's the predictable versus the unpredictable nature of sport, and especially team sport? In swimming, you've got the predictable natures of the foot getting off, hand touching, ten-pin bowling. You can program which ones get off, which ones don't, or the collection, which ones are missing. But in team sports like AFL, where the ball is at one time, or is it holding the ball or not, can't really be done by a machine. So that's that human element to it.
I fundamentally believe those decisions could be made by a machine. I'm not sure a sport wants that decision to be made by a machine, and that's why I talk about the drama. I love it, right? It's the charge block call in basketball. You know, it's a big call, and when it's wrong, there's controversy and discussion, and when it's right, there's controversy and discussion, and that's sort of a bit of a lifeblood of sport for me. So I think that's a sport by sport decision as to how they want to automate decision making in sport or how they don't. You know, I can see there are some decisions in sport that could be made much more accurate, out of bounds decisions, like we've seen in tennis, are much more accurate than they used to be, and they're good decisions, but they don't really add that much controversy.
Yeah, like cricket, and I think cricket is probably the best example for me of one that you could actually go to an automation, but do you want that? Like, it's either you go one way or the other. You can have half and half in terms of the DRS, but
it's been interesting with cricket because that's an encroaching automation. You know, the no ball now. Yeah. You know, every ball is reviewed for a no ball, right? And now we have all sorts of different data around no balls than we used to have. So I think it's and that's not necessarily automation, by the way, either. That's often, I think, visual review. But I think more and more cricket have just sort of built an automated approach to what they're doing. And I don't know what their appetite is. I haven't spoken to them as to where that stops. But, you know, at some point you've got to have an umpire on the field, if only to monitor player behaviour.
Just probably the last one on officiating. With the camera setup and the technology that you have, you showed us you can review, say, a goaltending call and have a decision made by that technology within 6 seconds. How important is technology to what you do and what Genius Sports does?
Yeah, it might not be 6 seconds, might be longer. It depends on the circumstance. And no, technology is really important, but innovation is really important. So technology in and of itself is, unless it has a reason, it's just technology, right? I mean, the camera on your mobile phone is vastly better than it used to be, and it does all sorts of things. And you now have video editing and photo editing software on your phone, all those things. And, I never use that stuff. I just take a photo. Right? So how important the tech is dependent on the use case of that. And if I am a person who cares about who's in the background of my photo, then I'm going to take them out using the editing software that's available to me. And if I don't care, I'm just going to leave it in and share that on social media. So our company is a tech company. We're driven by incredible innovation that helps sport. That's what we want to do. We want to innovate. We want to grow innovation in sport. We want to help sport at every level, whether it's a coach or a referee or an administrator or a broadcaster or someone who's engaged betting on the game, make better decisions because we provide them better data.
So how important then is it to actually stay at the forefront of the technology and in the industry, and to evolve and to actually go along with what is actually the path that's being taken?
All right, it's really important to stay focused where it matters. So for our business, we could do a lot of other things. I'll give you an example. There are great technology companies out there in basketball, very focused on just the act of shooting, right? That's a little bit niche. It's actually quite mainstream because there's so much basketball around the world. But would we hurry to be worried just about shooting as an outcome? Probably not, because it's only really got one customer, right? So we think about staying focused on the things that have a wide range of benefits from the technology that we're innovating around and the technology that we're using. Sometimes we'll do it for just one purpose, right? If there's value in that, but if it doesn't add, for us, real value, and that, I want to be really clear, those companies are great, right? And they're adding great value, but they're adding a great value to a small part of the ecosystem, and we're a company that touches many parts of the ecosystem.
Some parts of that ecosystem include pretty big sporting codes like NFL, NCAA, NBA. You mentioned the English Premier League. What do you sort of do for them, and how is it working with codes like that? What do you do for them? What do they do for you, I guess?
This stuff's all in the public domain. It's available. For NFL, we're the official sort of data partner for the NFL, so we carry the rights to distribute their data to a range of customers, and very similar relationships for others. For the NCAA, it's very different. We're rebuilding their data ecosystem. Their data collection was built on, quite respectfully, reasonably old technology, and not the most modern way of doing things. So we're rebuilding how they even just set up a game and record data in a game. So those purposes are different. But often our desire is to be a great partner to the sport or to the league around the distribution and monetization of their data and their content. So that's really the focus of what we try to do.
Have you seen differences around the world? So, for instance, USA, Europe, and Australia, have you actually seen differences in the way they want data utilised?
It's very different. The US sports are very focused on fan engagement. So it's at the top of their discussion. Every time you have a discussion around those US sports, they want to talk about how they engage the fans. And if you've been to a US sporting event, you know that the stadiums are noisy and there's constant activity and you never get a break. But that is so different, say, to going to an English Premier League game where the crowd makes the atmosphere, right? So there are really big differences in how those leagues around the world view their data and how they can be used. And certainly the US is the standout because betting, for example, has only been legalised there for a number of years. And those big US sports all see betting as a way of engaging fans. It's not just about money. It really isn't it. But it's very much about how do we engage our fans? How do we keep them interested in our game? How do we keep them interested in our game for longer within the game? All of those outcomes are what they are after.
How does Australia compare to both of those? Are we on track? Are we on a different track?
Look, I'm biased. I love Australian sport. Like, I'm addicted to it. You know, I have an AFL Watch subscription. I live overseas. I don't actually follow an AFL team. I just watch the game. I really care, right, about Australia. Like, I love cricket. Look, organisations the AFL, they do a great job. I mean, they're a great broadcast product. You know, it used to be said the AFL's not great for TV because you can't see everything on the field at once. But I think the way the broadcasters bring it to life is fantastic. You know, and you look at the innovation in Australia. Australia's well known for its innovation in sport, fantastically well known and deservedly well known. It's just different. And we engage with sport differently. You know, even these days, if you go to a football game in the UK, the majority of the fans are male, right? And we don't see that in an AFL or an NRL game, and that's, I think, a fantastic part of our culture, is that it's very much always been a family event.
Yeah. So going back to the data, how important is it for real-time data input and therefore real-time data output?
Critical. I mean, you think about just the simplest use case. No, it's not simple to do, but it's simple to think about. Is broadcast graphics.
Yep.
You know, when you see a three-pointer, so this is me. When I see a three-pointer hit in a basketball game, I'm watching that graphic in the bottom right-hand corner to see how fast the score's updated. That's real-time data, and the fan wants that. All right. If you're watching in the broadcast, that's important. If you're engaging in the game by betting, or if you're engaging in the game by fantasy, however you might be engaging as a fan in the game, you're really focused on that real-time data, and you want that to come in as quickly as you can. It gives you an edge, right? It makes you feel connected to the game as it's occurring, particularly if you're not in the stadium.
I can definitely attest to the fantasy aspect of it. On a Saturday or a Sunday when footy's on, or whatever game I'm invested in with fantasy, I'm always refreshing when I see one of the players I've got to touch. So it's always interesting to see that it is actually at the forefront of the
and it is, and it's interesting also that the technology you're using requires you to refresh, right? Which is interesting, because, you know, is that the best experience? I don't know, but the fact that you are refreshing says that you want instant data, as does everybody else. But the easiest use case is to think about a broadcast graphic.
How can you, through your augmented streams, improve the viewing experience, do you think?
I think, you know, we're doing some fun stuff with football now, where every touch of the ball shows the player's name at the second they touch the ball, right? So now we're educating people as to who's on the field and where they are on the pitch, and what that does. You think about that for, say, a sport like the NFL, where there's a lot of players come on and off the field all of the time. There's no formal substitution process. So no announcer is saying, oh, well, so-and-so's come in at wide receiver. They might say that, but commonly they don't. But just things like that, which is you know, a small part of what we do, will educate the fan. Oh, that guy caught the ball. You know, I know in real time that they caught the ball, and it tells me about who the players are. It helps build the player profile. There's a whole bunch of ways that those sort of things can help. But also, you know, hang time, you know, but hang time in real time. Like actually timing the ball as it's in the air is fun. It's just a level of engagement the fan hasn't had previously.
Do you think these sort of things are going to hinder the live viewing experience, and we might see less people attend games because of how good the experience is at home?
I probably don't. There's a school of thought that says we might not have fans in stadiums in 20 years' time because the augmented experience or augmented reality is so good. I probably don't hold to that. I think a large part of, I don't know about you guys, I think a large part of the fan experience, I go to a game and I can engage with people around me. Like the cricket, you go to cricket on a test match day and you have conversations with people from all over the world watching a cricket. I love it. Like I really enjoy that. I'm not going to get that necessarily unless the augmented reality experience is quite amazing. I'm not going to get that unless I go to the game, and I love that.
Can you see the augmented reality being integrated into the stadium experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I can see that happening. I can see it happening on video boards. I can see it happening within a unique mobile experience for those who are in the stadium. I think that would be a very real outcome of what might occur in the future, particularly with 5G, right?
Yeah.
So 5G technology changes a lot of this because the bandwidth is so much bigger. and the availability of high quality data to so many people simultaneously.
Could you see it with wearables like glasses as the first thing that comes to mind? So you could actually ball track in a football game, and it could just be a red dot, so it makes it easier to follow.
You think about you now have a camera and a pair of glasses, right? Okay, when you walk around. Okay, I don't think there's millions of them out there, but that's a bit different to walking around with a video cam, isn't it, or a mobile phone? So I could see a future where in your glasses, even if you might buy special glasses to attend the game, and I'm not talking a large goggle type experience, I'm talking a pair of glasses. I can see a future where that is relevant in the game, and that within the context of watching what you're watching, you can see how far a ball is kicked or something like that. I don't think it's close, but I can see it.
How safe do sporting leagues play it in terms of implementing new innovations, and why?
I think so much of innovation in sport has come from broadcasters, right? You think about cricket and what happened with cricket early. I think it was broadcasters who brought cricket along for that ride and said, we've got tech now that can show that LBW decision in a very different way than it used to be shown. I'm going back many years ago, older than you two guys. But I think broadcast has demanded a lot of innovation, and I think a lot of that has moved back into sport. So the advantage of sport in that is that if it doesn't work for the broadcaster, then sport don't have to adopt it. But if it does work, then it's an easier decision to adopt. But sport is innovative. It really has been, very innovative in many ways about how it manages itself and how it creates the game. You think about rule changes, the 666 and AFL. There's a whole bunch of things that the AFL has done. I like the standing the mark decision now. I like it. I like the rule. I think it's opened the game up. I think it's made it. But so they're not necessarily overly conservative about things like that, and therefore they often engage technology to help with that as well.
It's another big positive of the media, I guess, as well.
Yeah. So you're talking about what sporting codes, if it benefits them, but can you see 3D rendering video becoming part of the next step in sports broadcasting, giving the fans a new level of engagement at home? Or is it not going to be the next step, and it might not even be one of the next?
I don't think it's the next step. I think it's a while away from having the quality of 3D rendering. I can see there's capacity now where, if you think about the old Foxtel controller, and you used to press the red button and you could have a view of the game, right? There's different technologies available now that will allow you to only follow your favourite player. Right? That's all you want to do is watch your favourite player. That's available now. That's not quite 3D, but excuse me, it's a step in the direction of personalising the viewing experience when I'm watching on a stream or a broadcast. And I think that will grow. I don't know how much. I really don't. I haven't thought about it too deeply.
Is there such thing as too much data?
Oh, yeah. I'm really proud of our basketball analytics tool. It's got 500 data points in it, but they tell me it's about to become infinite, because of all the other things we can add to it. So I think it's extraordinary, and I love it. It's great, and coaches love it. There's always data that's relevant to someone in the ecosystem. I don't think that there's too much data for one group of users. There's not too much data for all of the users because they all have different ways of using the data, is how I would answer that.
Has technology changed the way that data's been perceived and the evolution of technology, especially in the last 15 years, because you can actually do real-time stuff nowadays?
Yeah, broadcasters have had real-time data for a long time, right? They've recorded that data in a way that was quite crude at times, but in order to get it to the broadcast, particularly in a graphic. One of the big changes for me that technology's been able to influence is the distribution of data in stadium in real time. I go back to the Sydney Olympics, and we had a very basic game centre for basketball, but we distributed a printed copy of the box score virtually every play to break and play. No one does that anymore, right? So now I'm just acquiring that data. I might have a special link because I'm a journalist in the venue, But now I'm acquiring that data in the venue in real time on that link that you've provided me. And none of that is possible without technology. It sounds really basic now because it's so commonplace. But the Sydney Olympics were 23 years ago, and we were pretty much distributing printed box scores to everybody in the stadium. You know, that's an extent of how it's changed, but it's all tech driven. Wasn't possible without tech. Even replay technology, right? Even the way a broadcaster uses replay now, and now that replay is available in the venue on the video board. The video board wasn't there 15 years ago in many venues, and that has changed everyone's experience of the game, and it's led to sports having to make rules about what can be replayed. All right, so all impacted by tech.
It's incredible how far everything's come, and as we were mentioning before, you've got a lot of relationships around the world with different leagues, and not all of them necessarily benefit you with, say, a profit.
Sure.
Why is that, and why do you still buy into those relationships?
Oh, we like sport. We have great relationships with sporting bodies around the world, and you want to build a network of data, right? You want to build a network of partnerships as a business, and so our philosophy is that we will work with sports up and down the ecosystem, up and down the levels of sport, and we'll support that. And if our technology can be used for an under-13 event by the sport itself and it's no encumbrance to us, that's great. That's just a benefit to the sport. And we just like that, I mean, to be honest. I mean, I can, if you go to the Basketball Australia underage national championships, there is live data being collected on every game, and we would never monetize that data. That would be completely inappropriate for a business like ours. But it's valuable to those parents and those fans and those coaches and all those others in the sport. So we're happy for our tooling to be used in that way.
So I guess that looks at the benefits of democratizing this product, and how important is it to actually be utilizing that and the benefits of
democratizing. Yeah. We really believe in it. We have a whole mission around democratizing data and democratizing the use of tooling that makes sport better. And it really is, how do I make decisions? I make decisions off data. How do you get data? Well, you need tools to get data. And everybody gets better because of that. And it engages fans on behalf of that sport. The sport has to have people to operate those tools, that software or that data collection or live stats, as we might call it. And all of that adds up to a stronger engagement, a better relationship with our business, which we care about, but also it's better for the sport. The idea of hundreds of leagues using our software for one particular sport is really attractive to us because it creates a groundswell of users and it creates a groundswell of data that's really valuable.
So what's in the future for yourself and the company? Yeah.
Well, I'm off to Manila tomorrow to the semi-finals and finals of the World Championship for basketball, which is very exciting. FIBA put on a great event in Japan, Indonesia, and Manila. And I like going back to Manila because they're basketball mad. So that's fun. We're just moving rapidly into this world of capturing, creating content through the use of computer vision, through the use of cameras. I'll say cameras because that's the best way of describing it, in order to create value, in order to collect data faster, to collect it more accurately, to be able to distribute it, to be able to distribute that within an automated broadcast, to help with officiating, to do tracking, to help with coaches. All of those things build themselves and they build each other. And if you want to do, here's a great example. You want to do VAR for football, then you have to understand what a pass is in football. You can't just do VAR, right? So you have to know what the pass is. So that all of those things work hand in glove to make a better product. And again, back to your point, then once we've built that, we can democratize that. And every layer of a sport can potentially be making better decisions or getting better decisions on offsides as a result of the things that we're doing.
So I guess any advice for somebody wanting to break into this industry as the whether it be data, whether it be the sports industry. But what advice have you got for people like us, people who are thinking about taking this journey?
Educate, obviously, volunteer. I just so believe in the volunteering path, right? I was a specialist volunteer. I was a statistician. Some people say I wasn't a very good statistician, but I was a statistician and I was pretty good at basketball data and I understood it. And sport needs volunteers, it values them, but I have literally hundreds of friends in the industry, and I reckon 80% of them started as a volunteer, or they started as a referee at 17 or 15 or 13, or they started as a parent coaching their kid's side, and they're now working full-time in the industry in some way. In terms of what you guys are doing, and I know you're very focused on media, I don't ignore the narrative of media that I used to love and be involved in was, the league put out a press release and someone picked it up and published it in their paper, or they asked a question about it and those sort of things. That's just changed so much, right? And I think that there'll be a really niche industry that emerges, right? A really niche working group within sport. Social media publishing is a great example of this, of how niched it's become. You have full-time people, multiple full-time people in individual football clubs, and all they do is social media, right? So you have to have skills for that. Can I edit the video? Can I doctor up a graphic and do something funny with it? Do I have a sense of humour? Do I have content? Do I understand how content relates to a wide audience? Having those skills is really important. That's the education part, right? But having an understanding of the sport, how it works, what its ecosystem is, that's the volunteering part. I'd put those two things together.
Yeah, it's really sound advice for all those listening or watching that are aspiring to get far into the industry or any industry to do with sport. There's just a world of opportunities, and what a great deep dive that was into the world of data and where it's going and how far it's come. Thank you, Matthew Cowling, for coming on to The Presser.
Absolutely pleasure.
All the best in your future endeavours and to Genius Sports.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.